All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Manhattan Community Board 3's Cannabis Control Task Force meeting for the month of January 2023. This is not the normal traditional committee meeting or anything of that sort. The task force is limited in its scope, and we are limiting ourselves to this specific application on the Cannabis Control Task Force. If the Cannabis Control Task Force ends up becoming a committee at a later date, that will be my decision. I'll introduce myself. I am Paul Morangle. I am the chair of Community Board 3. I am not officially on the Cannabis Control Task Force. You will hear the roll call of the members on that task force. I am running the meeting in place of the chair of the task force, Heidi Schmidt, tonight, who's dealing with some personal stuff, but she is on the call for tonight and will also ask questions when need be. But I will be running the meeting tonight. I will not vote on this application unless there is a need for a tie break. I just wanted to make that very clear. I will ask Mei Lee, who is our I'll ask Mei Lee, who is our secretary for tonight, to please do the roll call. Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, first one is Heidi Schmidt. Heidi, nope, I'll come back to her. I know I see her here.
I'm here, May.
Okay, great. Andrea Gordillo.
He's connecting to audio.
Okay.
Andrea, they just literally called your name out. Go ahead, you can say present.
Hi, present. Sorry about that.
Okay, great. Mei Lee, that's me, I'm here. Oh, David Crane. Okay, Arnett Scott.
Here, present.
Troy Velez.
Present.
Okay, David Crane, are you here?
He was rushing to get home. He's marking maps, and I know.
Okay. Okay, I didn't. I just was seeing if he was on the other list, but he's not. Okay, great.
No,
okay.
He's absent right now. It's fine.
Okay, thank you. So I am done.
Okay, thank you, Matt. Appreciate that. So once again, like I said, I'm simply running the meeting for tonight. I want to welcome the applicant, Joanne Wilson. This is a card application, CAURD. I believe that stands for Cannabis Adult Use Retail Dispensary, right? And these are. Am I missing something?
It's a conditional adult.
Conditional.
Dispensary.
The other C's been stuck in my head all day. There you go. Thank you. So that is the applications that we are hearing tonight. That is in our district. I believe Joanne Wilson will be presenting on behalf of the applicant, and then I believe there'll be another part of the presentation from representatives of Project Renewal. So I will start with the presentations from the applicant, go to Project Renewal right after that, and then I'll go to the task force and any questions they may have for the applicant and anybody else. And then I will take a few questions from the public before we move on. That will be the order. All right. So I don't know who's presenting on behalf of the applicant. Is it you directly, Joanne, or is it going to be somebody else?
Good evening. I think I'm going to start out. I don't want to cut you off, Joanne. True? Okay.
Go for it.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Aisha George. I work for Strive, New York. So what we're going to do is I'm just going to give you a background a little on the nonprofit organization for which has partnered and working with Joanne in this. So Strive, for all of you, if you don't know already, or have seen us around in your neighborhood before, we are located in East Harlem. So we literally were born and bred and started in a basement in East Harlem. Strive is a workforce development agency. Strive is a national leader in helping those facing some of the biggest societal barriers to employment obtain the training and supports they need to build careers and achieve economic empowerment. I always say that the Strive special sauce is more than just workforce and job placement. We're really about the holistic aspect of our students and our individuals that come through our program. We take that holistic approach. We take it through our 5-pillar model This is where, like I said, we address the whole person. So we meet them where they are, and we help them to drive them toward career advancement and upward mobility. Our model is really deeply rooted in strong partnerships, especially with employers to inform our training. And we just build pipelines to local industries. That is what we're all about. Strive has a very strong history of engaging with community partners, including Community Board, our own Community Board 11, who we work closely with. But it's just to ensure that all of our students receive the full services that they need. So when we say holistic approach, we literally give away food monthly because of insecurities, food insecurities in our community. We ensure that our participants, our students have clothing to actually go out on interviews and be career ready, for which they have received the credentialing from us. Wellness services, that's also a big part of our programming. So we have 3 buckets of kind of programs that are stable right now in our program. And a lot of it has to do around re-entry programming. So when we say that, we provide a lot of the wellness services that they need, right? You come home, you may need anger management as part of coming home. That's something that we provide, but we provide all of those spaces to really address the individual to get them ready for their career. We have a lot of our history within local hiring, and that's all addressed with us making those strong community partnerships. And part of this, and part of like my baton passing right now, is me starting off with just kind of painting a picture of Strive, but also just kind of connecting us to Joanne and how we got connected with them. So a lot of our work is based in re-entry. We deal with individuals that have been away and are re-entering the population. So we get them career ready. And what that looks like is through one of our programs called Fresh Start. And so we've been working with Joanne around this for some time. And I'll let Roy Castro, a Strive board member, kind of chime in on this. But we've been working with her within this population. And so this space, this opportunity is really where just preparation meets opportunity, right? It's that space of luck and where we have the credentials, but she has the preparation and the retail experience. But I'll let Roy kind of jump in.
Sure. Thank you for that, Aisha. So my name is Roy Castro, and as Aisha mentioned, I am the co-chair of Strive International. And to give you just a little bit of background on my story is that 2002, about 20 somewhat years ago, I had just came home from doing 10 years in jail. I found myself at the lowest point, and I found Strive. Strive helped me get a job. I attained employment through Strive. And through there, I went on, got that job, got my own business, became an entrepreneur, came back to Strive, started hiring people from Strive. And, 20 years later, I became the first graduate turned board member turned co-chair of this board. And me and Joanne met completely organically, has nothing to do with anything. We met through a mutual friend. And this was over a year ago when Joanne and I was talking. She came to me with a vision of what she wanted to do and what she had planned about for a year. From that point, she said, about a year from now, I'm going to be doing this. I want to operate in this cannabis space. And me and her spoke. I told her about Strive and that maybe we could connect and get people and train people at Strive so that way we could be a source of sending employees to her. And she was so generous. She was all into the reentry. She came in and said, Roy, I like what you guys do at Strive. She put her money where her mouth was. She funded our reentry program that we had lost the funding for. She came in like a knight in shining armor from my perspective. And we got that program up and running again. And then a couple of months ago, the unthinkable happened, that somehow they was going to allowing a nonprofit organization to also benefit to get as part of this cannabis license. Joanne and I already had the relationship. Joanne was already committed her funds to the reentry program. And this is where we thought it would be a great fit. And there was a lot of good organic synergy here. And there was where the relationship was born. So I'm going to leave that there. I'm going to pass this on to Joanne. I just wanted to give you guys the history and how this came about, how it was organic, how this happened a year or so ago. We didn't even foresee this coming. I didn't even know this was even possible. when we started this relationship. So I'll put my time there. Thank you for hearing me out. And Joanne, I'll pass it to you.
Thanks, Roy. Thanks, Aisha. So essentially is that I've been working on this concept for a couple years. Started out really as just a retail concept, as all these stores have sort of vanished through the years of COVID. And, you know, being a retail store, which is more of a lifestyle store. And then I learned about this cannabis opportunity and found Justin and his partners. And I said, well, let's do it. And as we went down the road, it became apparent to all of us that the only way to really be part of the original licenses was to partner with a nonprofit organization. And what I liked about that was many things. I mean, first of all, the whole concept behind this store has always been social, besides the fact that it is a concept retail store trying to change the narrative around cannabis. So yes, we are definitely selling cannabis, but we're also selling other things in that store. And one of the things that we have always wanted to do is to, you know, pay our employees, make sure all of our employees have full health care, make sure all of our employees are benefiting from the amount of cash that we're going to make, so that they would get part of the end of year bonuses that had to do with their employment. And then the other thing is that even before I knew that I would become a partner with Strive, we were planning on taking 15 or 20% of the EBITDA at the end of every year and giving it to our public charity that would give it to organizations like Strive, where there's serious ROI, and they're really making people's lives completely different, that found themselves in places where they didn't want to be. And, you know, we plan on hiring from NYCHA. I happen to be involved with the Fund for Public Housing, which hangs off the board of NYCHA, that we're changing the name actually in a couple of months. You'll see, we call it the Public Housing Community Fund. We plan on hiring from the Lower East Side Development. We plan on hiring from Strive. We're planning on hiring from Medgar Evers, which has actually run the first cannabis curriculum in the country. And, you know, my husband and I have been extremely philanthropic in New York. It's where we give all our give backs, and you know, we're excited to be part of the community. And so that's essentially what we're doing over there at the store that will be called Gotham.
All right, is there anybody else presenting? I'll take committee questions after all the presentations, Troy. Thanks. Is there anybody else presenting on behalf of the applicant, or was that it? That was it. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, that was it. Sorry.
All right, thank you. So we'll move now to project renewal. I believe has some representatives on the call as well who wanted to provide testimony in regard to this particular applicant. Who will be presenting on behalf of project renewal?
Hi, I'm Eric Rosenbaum. I'm the president and CEO of Project Renewal, and I'm joined by Doreen Thomas, who is our chief operating officer, by Damara Walzer, who is the program director at our homeless shelter, men's homeless shelter at 80s 3rd Street, by Gabriel Woodhouse, who is the program director for our licensed 820 substance use treatment program, also located at 8 East 3rd Street. And each of them can speak a little bit more. I'm just going to introduce this by saying that when we learned about this dispensary, we had some questions and some concerns. At this shelter, we house 175 men who are homeless, who have mental illnesses, who have histories of substance use. Many of them are either still in active stages of use or in early stages of recovery. We also house, as I said, a licensed 820 residential treatment program that has an additional 60 beds on site at 80s 3rd Street. And there is an outpatient substance use treatment program, a licensed program at the site also that has an active roster of around 120 clients coming to the site for support and programming. We also operate a second shelter right around the corner at 333 Bowery, which has 108 additional men who are homeless of the same population, homeless with mental illness and histories of substance use. So one question or concern we have is just the sheer volume of the number of people that we have literally across the street from this, and what the impact of that will be on them and potentially on the community. We know there, I think Gabriel and Damara can speak a little bit more directly about what their concerns or questions are. But given that this is not a population that is in stable recovery, what is the impact of being across the street from this? And also, if there are incidents that happen, what will that mean for us? Because people tend to think that anything bad that happens in the neighborhood is probably related to our shelter. So we're a little bit concerned about any ramifications for that. So it's a total of 343 men living between 8 East 3rd Street and 330 Bowery, plus the people who visit the outpatient clinic. It's a pretty substantial population, literally right there. And I think I'll turn this over to Damara and Gabriel to speak a little bit more about what the situation is like on the ground for them.
Good evening, everyone. As Eric mentioned, my name is Damara Walser, and I'm also joined here by one of my shelter residents, who's also going to speak shortly. But at the site, we try our best to create a fostering therapeutic environment for the clients upon entry into the shelter. As many of you may know or may not know, many of the clients, they actually, have recently been released from prison, or they're currently on parole, or just frequent visitors of Rikers Island. And we ultimately, try to engage them about housing and trying to link them to supportive services while here, and in particular, substance use services. We feel that if there is a cannabis dispensary opening right in the middle of both shelters, it can definitely impact the client's road to sobriety. There's no range on how long the clients will be here, but we try our best to provide them with the best services to integrate back into society. In addition to that, many of our clients also struggle with chronic medical issues related to substance use. And as Eric mentioned, we do have a clinic here. And with the clinic being here, it helps the clients also to link and stay connected to the doctors and also adhere to their medication. A lot of clients that are using other substances, they might not have ever used cannabis, and just walking past a dispensary can trigger them to also start using now a new substance that they've never been introduced to. I am going to pass it along to Mr. Pearson. He's actually been with us for almost a year in the shelter. So I don't know, can you all see Mr. Pearson? Okay.
All right, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Just like they say, the concern is with these clients, a lot of them are on certain drug substances. And if you put a place like that here, it's not gonna help, because they're gonna get tempted. Even though they don't smoke weed, it still have them like smelling it and wanna go use the other drugs, the harder substance that they work hard to try to help them kick, so they can prepare them to go back in society and have their own place. If you put it, and take it from me, I smoke weed. I smoke hella weed, excuse my language, but I can control it. I don't have to smoke, I don't have an addiction. A lot of people in here have addiction that's older than us, older to be your father, younger to be your child, and a lot of them will follow us. They're not strong enough to beat any addiction that they have. You know what I mean? They go through a lot of stressful times. staff, they got problems, so their best solution is to go get high. And if you put a place like that here, it's just gonna open the door. It's an excuse for them. You know what I mean? If you're not gonna put a thief in a room with a bunch of purse. He's a thief. You're trying to help him not steal. You're gonna try to take it from that line. Same thing with people on drugs. You don't want to put cannabis, vapor, any substance that would have them. That's basically a drug anyway. Alcohol. You don't want to put that, especially on the block right across the street from a detox place, outpatient, inpatient. And I deal with a lot of you men. When I hear here, they know me. I'm very well known. I deal with a lot of them. I try to help them. A lot of them have addiction. They be overdosing. The hospital gotta get caught. EMS come here like 90 times a day. The cops gotta keep coming. They try their best. They can't do their work because of the substance abuse. And they try their best to keep it out and all that. But when they leave out of here, they can't control it. So if you got that right here, that's a hole in the wall. That's right there. That's like getting up and going, open your refrigerator and popping the soul and laying right back down and getting high. Do you understand what I'm saying? Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, I am.
Well,
Thank you.
I wouldn't think that's a good place to put it on 3rd Street. Now, of course, not right here. That's not a good place.
Thank you.
Gabriel, I know you had something to add to the conversation.
Yeah, thanks so much. And thanks for that account just now. That was really powerful to hear from one of the residents of East 3rd Street. I just want to add a couple of things to what Damara and Eric already spoke to. But I also want to be really clear that we are not, at Project Renewal, we're not opposing this license per se. We're not opposing adult use cannabis. We're very much in support of this legislation and the social justice component of it and the harm reduction evidence that cannabis use legalization, shows. So, we really do want to be very clear. It's particularly the siting of this dispensary right across the street from the entrance to our building, which is the shelter, and also 2 licensed Oasis treatment programs that people come to us from all over the city, and even outside of the city. They come to us. They get referred from all around. It's a place of refuge for people who are really struggling with substance use. Many of them report cannabis use disorder as a specific item that they're struggling with. And they come to us, one of the key things that many of them are suffering from histories of trauma, and they're coming to us seeking a place that is safe and a place where they feel safe and supported. And so this is, for us, this is like just as much as we would oppose a liquor store right across the street. It creates a tension for our program to have right within the sight lines of the entrance of our building and our programs, a dispensary right across the street. And I know there's been talk to the limited signage and some of the regulations to address some of those concerns in terms of signage, but the reality is it's a dispensary. It's a cannabis dispensary right across the street from our program. Clients come and go from our program to go out into the community and do things. And so you're going to have people going, for example, just to the 7-Eleven to get things from the store, and they're going to have to walk right by the dispensary. It's right, it's right in the pathway of 3rd Street so. And the other thing I really want to point out is we bring clients come outside. There's an outdoor space on 3rd Street that we do a lot of therapeutic groups. Our occupational therapists, our social workers bring clients out there. We have a garden, and right directly in the sightlines will be this dispensary at 3rd Street. I mean, it's right across the street. It's clearly going to be visible. And so whenever clients are coming outside from the building, from our programs, our licensed treatment programs, they're going to have to be exposed to that potentially triggering, dispensary. And for many of our clients, you know, they have a history that where cannabis is, they self-report that it's something that they struggle with. So, you know, this is, for us, there are a lot of concerns. We do support, you know, like I said, we support the business and we support the license. And I was, you know, really glad to hear what, you know, the aspirations that the nonprofit program that you're affiliated with, you know, it sounds like it's very in alignment with many of the mission goals of Project Renewal. But the concerns for the health and safety of our clients are really, really substantial for us. So I really wanted to make that point. Thank you.
I think that's it for the presentations from Project Renewal. Thank you for hearing us.
I just got a text that Louise Sabru wanted to speak from Project Renewal. Is that true?
Louis is the senior director who oversees the substance use treatment programs at Project Renewal.
If you can make him a speaker, we would welcome his words.
Okay,
allowed. I just promoted him to panelist. When he gets on, he can speak.
Thank you.
Okay. Hi, good evening, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Had to rejoin as a panelist. I apologize. But I just wanted to echo what everyone from Project Renewal, my colleagues, Eric, Gabriel, Damara, and Doreen have said in terms of the potential risk for this dispensary and how many years of work, right, are threatened by it. And it's really that simple. We've been in that block for over 50 years. So, you know, we've worked really hard with the community, with the clients. We adopt a harm reduction approach. And, you know, our clients struggle every day, you know, and you know, their realities are very different than the realities of many people from the Bowery, you know. So a dispensary could be potentially harmful and risky for all of them, as we have mentioned. So I just wanted to sort of echo that and sort of just shed light on how, you know, we really worked with an underserved population, people that are having homeless for a long time, people that need medical care, which we provide, people that need the basic necessities in life. And we work really hard to help them, to provide them with health, homes, and jobs, and to protect them as much as we can. So it's coming from that place. So thank you, Doreen, for that. And really, that's all that I wanted to share today.
And I think I'll wrap it up for Project Renewal by saying many of the clients who reside in the shelter and or within the treatment programs are mandated by parole to attend the treatment programs. And if they relapse, they would typically be returned to jail or to prison. And, you know, from a social justice perspective, we understand the social justice perspective of the legislation and of having folks who have histories of incarceration and become entrepreneurs. But there's another side of that here, and we just want to make sure that that isn't lost, and that is that our clients could be harmed by being triggered and using as a result of having the dispensary directly across the street from their treatment. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I'm going to go on one more testimony. It's from our district manager, Susan Stetzer. I forgot to introduce her at the beginning. She will give a brief testimony, and then we'll move to questions from the task force.
Okay, thank you. I'm speaking as district manager tasked to formulate ideas and recommendations about community needs for consideration by the board members. First, I'd like to give a brief background of the board's work with Project Renewal, because most people wouldn't have this information. It's been a long-standing relationship. I've been on the Community Advisory Board for about 15 years, as has David Crane. We additionally work with Project Renewal, the community, especially Cooper Square Mutual Housing, which is most of the housing on that block, and the 9th Precinct on ongoing issues when necessary. Sometimes this is a lot and sometimes not so much. For about 10 years, I worked to get rid of an open air drug mart on 2nd Avenue and 3rd Street. These people preyed on residents of the shelter, and we finally got rid of this during COVID. We have worked with the precinct in Cooper Square and Project Renewal regarding drug dealing with shelter residents. And even in the last 6 months, we have worked with Bowery Hotel and Project Renewal Security regarding issues that were sometimes resolved by residents being transferred. I don't like to publicize problems, but this is not an easy block. These men are our most vulnerable residents, and they're without resources, and we need to give them a lot of support. As mentioned, some have been just released from prison. These are no-income people of color and without support, the same people being focused on for mitigation for social justice. They are residents of Community Board 3, and there's really very little voice for shelter residents. They will never buy the product at the dispensary. They couldn't afford it. My fear would be that triggers would have them buying what they can afford from the dealers that prey on them, or K2. I did see one resident ODing from K2 in front of the shelter and being taken by an ambulance, and it was a very horrible sight that I wish I could forget. Drugs have always been a major issue that the men live with, and I hope that we can give them support. And I would ask that you consider whether locating a dispensary in this particular block might create a new inequitable situation. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you to all the presenters tonight. Gabriel, you had one final comment, and because I do want to go to the committee for questions.
Yeah, I'll be really, really brief. I just wanted to mention also that we did some research. There's not a lot of academic studies on cannabis retailers and their impact on environmental, on populations and different environments. But one of the studies that we did look at was from 2015 from the Journal of Alcohol and Drug Dependence, and it talked about one of the best ways to understand the impact of cannabis retailers on populations is to look at, the closest analogy would be to look at alcohol and tobacco retailers and their impact on alcohol and tobacco use in that environment. And the literature regarding alcohol and tobacco retail indicates, and I'm reading from the study, that physical availability of retailers is associated with increased use of the respective substances. Physical availability of retailers reduces search costs to obtain those products, and therefore increases exposure to environmental cues that promote use and deters quit attempts. Specific to marijuana, prior research has documented that greater density of medical marijuana dispensaries in 50 mid-sized California cities was associated with higher odds of past month use and greater frequency of use among adults. So the research, they conclude, the researchers suggest that the exposure to marijuana retail within one's physical environment may be associated with increased use and potentially dependence. So I really wanted to just kind of add that to the discussion for consideration. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. All right, so I know Justin, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Look, I mean, for every piece of research like that out there, there's also research about cannabis and its benefits for people that are struggling with opioid abuse and the benefits that they have in terms of how that has become a replacement for them on things like that. I don't think we need to get into that conversation. It's not meant to be sort of a tit for tat. We certainly appreciate all the concerns that are being raised here, but just a couple of facts that I wanted to put out there that I think are germane to the discussion are, one, right, this is by the state guidelines and the guidelines in New York City. This is a compliant location for the operation of a dispensary. The state has guidelines with respect to proximity to houses of worship and schools, but not centers like this. That said, we want to be good neighbors. We certainly are appreciative of the concerns that are being raised here today, and would take them into consideration with respect to the operations of the business. But a couple other things I think are relevant, by regulation and by law, no cannabis can ever be visible from the outside of the facility. That's in the regulations. So nobody that's walking by the dispensary would ever see any cannabis, would never smell any cannabis. So that would certainly reduce any potential urge. And I think, we all sort of understand, right? The cannabis that's going to be sold at this dispensary is going to be at a much higher price point than anything else that is currently available in the illicit market right now that anybody in New York City that's looking for could find. Right? I don't think there's anybody that's really concerned that any of the residents of these shelters are going to actually be customers of the store. I just don't think that's really realistic. And obviously there's a lot of security that goes into these facilities, and more so, you have to have proper identification in order to even gain access. But more importantly, because we know that this is an issue, staff is trained to recognize people that might be struggling with substance use issues, and how to deal with them if they do enter the store, in terms of we always have the discretion to not sell product to somebody based on those criteria, and would have resources available at the dispensary to provide to somebody who we think might be struggling with such issues. So from my perspective, we always view conversations like this as a chance to actually form great partnerships where if we are going to be operating in the community, I think it would be great to work together for the common good here. I think that we have a shared goal there, and so we just at bottom wanted to state that we certainly respect all the opinions. Cannabis is always a hot button issue, and people have legitimate concerns with respect to dispensaries, and we certainly understand that, and would certainly take it into consideration with respect to our operation. So I thank everybody for voicing their opinions tonight.
Thank you, Justin. Okay, so what we'll do now is I will call on the members of the task force who have their hands up, and they've already started to raise their hands. Thank you for making it easy for me. So I'm going to start with the chair, Heidi Schmidt. Go ahead, Heidi, and then David.
Thanks, Paul. Sorry for the background noise. I'm bathing my newborn. I just wanted to reiterate what a few things that have already been said. One about the years of work with Project Renewal on the block and the community board and the community, that any problem that is there on the block, if it's drug dealing, violence, trash, noise, it is very often, almost always, blamed on the shelter. And I just want to reiterate that when those types of things happen, if there's a way that we can, and I would like to hear from the applicant, if there's ways in which, just like folks ask of the shelter, if there's ways in which you will be a good neighbor. What does the security look like? What does the smoking policy, I guess, outside the store look like? If you could reiterate those things. I know you reviewed them a little bit just now, but if you can talk more about details of that, because that's a big thing, that anything that happens will be blamed on the shelter. I think that was my main point for now. If I remember the rest, I'll probably put it in the chat because I won't be able to talk for a few minutes.
You want me to answer?
Go ahead, Joanne. I'll follow you if anything.
Okay, great.
Well, sorry. I just wanted to say, sorry, just so that I can get this out too. The other thing I just wanted to mention is, while I know Strive is in Harlem or East Harlem, I think it would have been better, you would have been better positioned to understand the community and the community needs if you had partnered with a nonprofit that was local to the community, so that you would know that Project Renewal was there, that the shelter was there, that the community blames every single issue on the shelter. So I just wanted to make that point too, that really partnering while they're in Manhattan, and Strive sounds like they're doing great work, it would be, preferable to partner with someone who's hyper local, a nonprofit that's hyper local.
I think you all can answer now.
Yeah, I mean, we are, security is certainly part of what we will be hiring for. We do understand that from watching the first store open in Manhattan, that there will be lines to begin, and we will have security outside. We will be managing those lines. One of the people that is in the top C team that's working with us actually comes out of the nightlife era, and so he's very much aware of how to make sure that works and we don't have any problems in the neighborhood. And people are not supposed to smoke outside. We're not pumping smoke outside, and this is a store. You come in, you make your purchase, and you leave. And we plan on doing everything that we can to be as good neighbors, in regards to this whole process that the OCM has put through. Was I just followed the guidelines, and the guidelines were, nothing near a school, nothing near a place of worship. And we chose to be downtown, and it happened slowly, and then it happened very quickly. And so I appreciate Heidi, you mentioning that a lot of the issues on the street go back to the shelter, and we will do everything as a good neighbor to ensure that we can be of help of anything that we can be, to make it a great place for everyone to live and to exist.
Yeah, and just to piggyback off that, I mean, there could actually be some ancillary benefit, right? If that's a concern, that anything that happens on the block gets sort of pinned on the shelter, right? When you have a dispensary like this operating on the block, that often becomes a very, the security that goes into this, both interior and exterior, right, in terms of proper lighting and cameras, it often becomes a very secure area. We see this in other communities across the country. And so I think that it might actually have the benefit of making the block even safer, and maybe deflect some of the negative attention that the shelter might get with incidents that happen on the block. You'll probably see a reduction in some of those incidents. But certainly, I think when it comes to good neighbor policy, and we're going to be operating what we think would be a high-end dispensary on this block. Certainly going to take a lot of pride in the appearance and making sure that people who are going to be coming to the store feel comfortable and feel safe, especially if there are lines outside. I think we're going to take a lot of pride in this block if we're going to make it our home, and we do our part to being a good neighbor and anything that we can to make sure that it is clean, and that we are being supportive neighbors any way that we can to help beautify the block. With respect to the smoking policy, unfortunately, the law in New York City right now is anywhere that you can smoke a cigarette, you can smoke cannabis. As everybody that lives in the city knows, you smell it everywhere. That said, we would certainly, while we can't prevent anybody from doing it because they are legally allowed to, we would certainly discourage anybody that's queuing up in line or that is just purchased product from consuming it right outside. We would have signage up in the dispensary saying just that please be respectful of our neighbors. But we're sort of limited in terms of what we can do because the law is the law there. And just the last thing I would say with respect to the choice of Strive rather than partnering with somebody else in the community, I think as Roy pointed out, this was not an instance where people were shopping for a partner to take advantage of this opportunity. There is a long-standing relationship between Strive and Joanne that pre-existed the MRTA, but certainly this card opportunity. So as Roy mentioned, Joanne has already been a big benefactor of Strive. She would never, she's too modest to say it, but I will certainly do it. And she's been extremely generous in terms of her support of the organization. And so it just happened to be one of those things that when the opportunity arose and it was clear that this was an opportunity, it made sense to partner on it together. And the last thing that anybody would want to do is strike a disingenuous partnership or go shopping for a partner just to be in a particular area of the city.
Absolutely. And just to back up what Justin is saying, and kind of just, you know, Strive has humility and respect for this community. And just to kind of address Heidi, no, we are not hyper local, but we have partnered with many of the organizations in the Lower East Side in regards to workforce development. And that is our space. And so we take respect for your community, but no, we are not hyper local in the sense, but we are local in the sense that we deal with students. We bring in students that go across the city, across the 5 boroughs, and may be in your community right now. But we definitely hold high respect and humility. We are not hyper local, but we are Manhattan. We are local in that sense.
Thank you. David Crane is next hand.
Thank you. Well, I guess now I have a preface question. I'm curious, Mr. Singer, have you ever been to the block?
I have. I've not been there recently though, since I moved out.
Because your description of how security can improve, it doesn't really apply on that block. I mean, that block has a super fancy hotel. It's got a number of shops. It's got restaurant. In any case, all right. So I'm hearing, that we were talking about possibility of triggering. It's plausible. I don't think it's going to come from the store itself. I do think it would the only possible way it would happen would be smelling the pot, because there are going to be people who are going to purchase and go outside and light up immediately. I think that may be a big part of the business, let's say on the weekends, because of the nature of it's a nightlife destination neighborhood. Okay. How do you feel about the liquor licenses on the block? You can buy beer at the corner, 2 different stores right on the corner of 3rd Street and 2nd Avenue. Are they a risk for the population? I mean, there's an on-premise license in a restaurant, but that's self-contained. So I guess I'm asking how is this different, or is it significantly different? The presence of the recreational dispensary versus the presence of carry out beer from the delis on the corner.
Is that a question to?
Yeah, I would like to hear their perspective on that.
Look, I mean, I think the fact that there are already things that are on the block that are more accessible to the population, right? In terms of their ability to go into a facility like that or a store like that and obtain alcohol much cheaper than they could walking into a dispensary where you have to show ID in order to get in.
Actually, I was asking for the program, so I'd prefer to hear what the program feels about the relative triggering risk of the existing beer and wine licenses on the block, and the possibility of having, a recreational dispensary on the block.
I think Damara or Gabriel.
Well, David, I think there are substantial differences between, you could buy a beer at 7-Eleven, which is right around the corner. You could go down to 2nd Avenue and 3rd Street, to the grocery store there and buy beer, right? But that's not the point. The point is that, beer, we could find it. If people ever try to sneak in contraband, like we call it, because it's a substance use program, we could see the bottle. We can, it's hard to sneak by. Even if they decide to drink a beer before they go into program, we have measures to test them and whatnot. Marijuana is a different substance. It's smaller. It's easier to hide. It could be sold in program. It's a lot of things that could happen, and we take full responsibility for our clients and for their behaviors, especially with the community. And unfortunately, though, marijuana could be easier to sort of sneak into any program. These drugs tend to even get in federal prison and jail. So we do our best, but they tend to sneak in, and they could use it for things that are not healthy, and there are many things that people use it to mix it with that is dangerous for their health. So So I think that yes, the availability of potential, alcohol, it's there, but the potential of risk and of someone drinking a beer outside and going in is very different than somebody sneaking in products and selling it on the floor or jeopardizing the health and sobriety of every other person in that building. That's my perspective. I don't know if my colleagues want to share anything else.
Yeah, no, thanks, Louis. And thanks, David, for the question. I would say, I mean, the ubiquity of alcohol availability everywhere, really, right? I mean, it's the nature of alcohol in our society. Unless you live in a dry county or something, it's something that people are very acclimated and accustomed to. Whereas when we're talking about a cannabis retail location, a cannabis dispensary, it's very different, right? It has a whole different cultural nuance, and it could be very triggering in a different way. And I'll also add that many of our clients are on parole, and cannabis specifically, is prohibited for use for most clients on parole or probation. So that's another consideration. Many of the clients in the treatment program and also in the shelter are clients that have parole situations. So just those are some off the top of my mind, some points about that.
And I'll just add, walking directly out the door down the steps and having the sight line is very different than the deli on the corner, which is actually the opposite end of the block. Mm-hmm. You'd have to traverse the entire block to get to that corner because the shelter is toward the other end of the block. And it's the idea is the sight lines, to see it as you come out of the shelter every single time.
Thank you.
Before I call on anyone else, just to make sure, I just want to task force members, if you're going to direct the questions to the applicant, make sure you're directing the questions to the applicant or to project renewal, so that way there's no confusion. All right, Troy, you are the next hand up.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, if that's all right. I have one to project renewal, and that's just, what's the average length of stay of the people in your program?
Well over a year. Oh, go ahead, Damara. Sorry.
Oh, sorry. So are you talking about the shelter or the shelter aspect or the 820 program?
The
shelter
program directly across from the dispensary?
Okay, so the clients actually don't have an average length of stay. We try to help them on their road to recovery. And, once we assist them the best way possible, eventually, they move out, but there's no average length of stay. Our goal is 9 to 12 months. Some move out sooner and some can take longer.
Okay, thank you. Now I have a couple for the applicant. Well, one of my questions were asked already, why not use nonprofit from the community, right? And so the second part to that is, will any of the profits earned go back into the community? I know that you mentioned that you partner with some of the job programs and things like that, but we have a lot of at-risk youth in our community. And we have a lot of programs for them, but they're not being funded. So we want to know if any of the profits will go back into them.
Honestly, I mean, we haven't even gotten that far. I mean, I will tell you one thing. This is the first of 2 stores that we hope would open.
Love you.
You too. There's one of 2 stores that we hoping to open. And as I said, the concept is on these stores that we had always planned to give back, 10 to 15 to 20% of the EBITDA, and then distribute it to organizations that we can make a difference. In terms of Strive, the way this is set up, they make 51% of the profits, which is a great thing. I mean, think about that. If you owned a business and you were managing a business, you're putting all the money into the business, you were hiring all the people, you were creating the entire concept, and then Yeah, tons over there. And then, 51% went to a nonprofit. I mean, that's a pretty major thing that actually I'm excited about. And so I'd like to be more aware of a variety of the different organizations that are in CB3 as we continue to open up other stores with more cash to give back. I mean, that is really one of the things that I really care about is the social give back, so that for the employees, for organizations, and so that we can make an impact with this capital. Meaning cannabis has been given a narrative since the 1930s that it's this horrific drug. And the reality is, if you look at all the information that's coming out and how it was dealt with, it was, making a falsehood. And so we are hoping that with this particular store and the others that we open, that we can give back to the community with it, because that's what it should be.
Yeah, and just to reiterate on that point, right? By law, right, 51% of all of the profits are going to support Strive. So that is primarily the focus of the organization. I think a way that we've been envisioning partnering specifically within the community, amongst other things, is really through employment initiatives with organizations like Lesson and others that we've already started to reach out to. That's where we see real opportunity to bring people in, especially when, with the way that we're talking about operating the store, not just with the salaries and the benefits, but also the ability to earn equity in this business, right, through employment. Is something that's a real sort of game changer, and I think could create real opportunities for folks within the community that we're really excited about.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to note, I reached out to Gasper. He wanted to wait till this was complete. And when we start hiring for the, they're called bud tenders, the 4 places that we're going to be posting that job is Lesson, NYCHA, Medgar Evers, and Strive. I mean, that is where we want to hire from.
Well, thank you. Just to let you know, down here, Lesson is not the only people that you could go to hire from. The community as a whole, there are a lot of organizations that you could go to.
Great.
To seek employment. Okay.
You know what? My email, I'm out there on the internet. I would be delighted if you would send me what they are so that we can post them in the proper places. To have people in the neighborhood working in a store that's trying to make an impact, we would be thrilled.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you, Troy. Next hand is Andrea.
Hi, thanks everyone, and thanks for your testimony. I have a couple of questions. For the first one is for project renewal. Just as context, I don't know how many shelters you all have in CB3, but there's many shelters in CB3 in general. Folks in the general public might not be aware of that, but there are, and I understand that there are specific issues with this block, but I wanted to understand your philosophy or perspective as to harm reduction as it relates to MRTA and the future of MRTA in particular. This is not going to be the first or only or last cannabis retail shop. And as you know, there's particularly on the west side of the community board 3, there's a high density of retail stores. There's a lot more transit. There's a lot more tourism. And so I'm just curious as to like, what's the like kind of approach to dealing with addiction services and cannabis retail use. And Justin talked a little bit about some of the distinctiveness about the operations that are part of the MRTA and the OCM's guidelines, right? And so I just wanted to understand a little bit better what your approach is to that. And that question's for anyone in project renewal.
I think Louis or Gabriel, do you want to respond?
Yeah, I was just waiting to see if anybody else wanted. Yeah, so I mean, we fully, we're partially funded by the Office of Alcohol Services, Addiction Services and Supports, OASIS. As mentioned, we have 2 licensed programs within the 83rd Street building, which is known to be a shelter, homeless shelter. But there are these 2 licensed components in it. We fully adopt a harm reduction model. We follow the state guidelines. We have a lot of flexibility in terms of our philosophy for care. So, we understand that people, may return to use or relapse, or, and that diseases, that the alcoholism and substance use is a disease, right? We adopt a disease model. But when it comes to marijuana, I think we've mentioned it before, is that number one, it's not allowed, even though it's the law now that, adults can use it recreationally, right? Parole does not allow for our clients, they could go back to jail. It's detrimental to their health, and a lot of our clients have comorbid disorders. They not only have opioid use disorders, but they have other alcohol use disorders and marijuana use disorders. So, although we adopt this harm reduction approach, we kind of tend to educate our clients to not use substances, if you will, and because we know how harmful that could be. And again, we also try to protect the community as a whole. Right. So although we are in favor of the dispensary and of everything, I think that what we sort of said here is that I don't think we could jeopardize the health and safety of one population for the benefit of another. And I hear the social sort of aspect of this venture, which sounds amazing. But again, it's sort of jeopardizing the health of our clients for the others, for the benefit of others. That's how kind of we see it. I don't know if I answered your question, Andrea, but that's sort of like our model.
Okay. And then I'll admit I haven't read every line of MRTA, so I am surprised to learn. I just want to make sure that you have this factually correct, that cannabis is a violation of someone's parole, even though after the passage of MRTA. Is that correct?
Yeah, for sure. It's usually people get stipulations when released. And yeah, for sure. And actually a lot of our clients are mandated for treatment. A lot of people, especially on the outpatient program on the first floor, are mandated to treatment, and it specifies sort of like what the treatment plan should follow. And it happens a lot. It just happens a lot.
All right. I was just surprised. That seems outrageous.
Yeah, it is. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Louis. Andrea, I just wanted to add that this dispensary that we're talking about, the siting of this particular dispensary, this is not a medical dispensary, right? This is an adult use dispensary. So we're not talking about a doctor's office. I know there's aspirations. I've heard the mission statement of the dispensary's business, and they talk about some of the wellness components, but it's not a medical dispensary. So that's.
I understand that, and I was talking about the general legalization of marijuana is going to proliferate a lot. So that's why that was my concern, was like, why wasn't this kind of addressed earlier on? When MRTA was being developed and passed and that sort of thing. So there was just a little bit of confusion for me that I wanted to understand.
Yeah, and this is all very new also, so, but certainly the harm reduction aspects of cannabis use legalization and reformation is something, we understand the positive impact of all that, but this is specific to clients that are in treatment for substance use disorder in the proximity of a recreational site right across the street.
And Andre, just with respect to your question about the language of the MRTA on that issue with respect to parole, section 127 of the law, it says a person currently under parole, probation, or other state supervision, or released on recognizance, non-monetary conditions, or bail prior to being convicted shall not be punished or otherwise penalized for conduct allowed under this chapter unless the terms and conditions of said parole, probation, or state supervision explicitly prohibit a person's cannabis use or any other conduct otherwise allowed in this chapter. So I think that aligns with what Luis was saying, but that's the particular language there. There is no punishment for it unless the terms specifically say that cannabis use is not allowed.
And mandating treatment would obviously be including that statement.
All right, thank you. Okay. The next hand I see is Arnett. Go ahead.
Hello, good evening, everyone. Thank you guys for coming. I have quite a few questions. I'm going to try to be as quick as possible. One, this is not a question, but just a little summary of who I am and may understand a little more about the intent behind the question. I'm a longtime Lower East Sider, born and raised here, second generation. My mother was born and raised here as well. I also am employed by Education Alliance, who actually has a facility on 3rd Street and Avenue D, and it's CRW, the Center for Recovery and Wellness. It is a rehab center. We have some of our clients use the services at Project Renewal. So I'm familiar with the work at Project Renewal because we have some of our clients go there for various services. So thank you guys. You do absolutely great work. Appreciate you. CRW is located about a 5 to 10 minute walk from Project Renewal. So it's really in our backyard. So the dispensary would also affect our clients as they go from our site to Project Renewal for services. Our site is a residential treatment center. We have rehab, we have reintegration, and we also have an outpatient center. And 3rd Street in itself is a hot block. I was, my first couple of months of life, I was on 3rd Street and Avenue D, 318, East 318th Street, and East 318 3rd Street. The building is no longer there. That is sort of telling my age. But that block has always been consistently hot with drug use and drug trafficking. And one of the things that, now this is going into my question, one of the things that Joanne was speaking of is reaching out to Lesson and other nonprofit entities that value workforce. But from my understanding, the conditional licensing was also to once again help those that was disenfranchised by the drug laws. And currently we still have youth that are on 3rd Street that are actually still selling. And it would be a wonderful opportunity if there was an outreach for those young men and women to have a legal means of actually doing something they already know. And from the presentation, I got more of like a secondary approach to what social justice or social services would take on to the actual place that you're trying to do the store. Like, giving money to this one, giving money to that thing. And it's actually a group of people that can actually use that service that you don't have to get out to the other lesson and all that good stuff. There's actually people that you can hire on the street. So the intent behind the social services, I need a little more conversation on that. The other thing is, you mentioned that there will be training to spot substance users on site, like you're going to train your employees to be able to spot that. I'd like to hear more about what that training entails and what sort of resource you're using in order to train people to do that. Also, I would like to also talk about, a question, this is all for the applicants. The security that you mentioned, basically you said that you're hiring bouncers, and their experiences from nightlife would help you navigate security for the outside, and also help with security for possibly project renewal and make the street better or provide more services. But as you describe your product, it is high end, and the bouncer, that to me in itself seems to be that you're not really partnering with your neighbor, because your neighbors are a shelter. So high-end product is not really for a shelter. Security that you're providing is more of a nightlife bouncer type. And you're also introducing a component of training that I need to understand more how that is translated to the bouncer, high-end, and your neighbor, if that makes any sense. If that's too much, if I need to break it down a little more, please tell me, because I can be a little wordy. So that is for Justin or Joanne, who can, I'll break it down a little, explain what sort of training is provided, what's that resource of training, and as well as what training is provided for the security on that block.
Sure, I'm happy to take it first, and then Joanne can fill in. With respect to the substance use training, it's something that is common in the cannabis industry because, again, it's a controlled substance, and it is not uncommon that during the course of business, somebody might come into the store who may be struggling with substance use disorders. So it's something that we like to have staff trained to just see what might be the signs for somebody who is coping with substance use disorder. And frankly, it's funny because for me personally, I'm a lawyer and I represent clients across the country that do this. And the way that we train is by partnering with organizations such as Project Renewal, who are in the community, say, look, we're going to be in the community. We want to work with you as a partnership, help train our staff, help provide resources at our dispensary with regard to Project Renewal, so that if people do come into the dispensary who are in need of help, that we have the resources there to point them in the right direction. It's just a natural consequence of doing business in the cannabis industry, where you try to put your best foot forward within the community. So it's working directly with organizations like Project Renewal when it comes to training on staff. As far as security, it is licensed professional security companies that provide the security. It's not bouncers, and there's the regulations are extremely robust in New York with respect to the security protocols, which we will be following. They're not armed security, but they are very highly professional and dealing with securing a facility like this in a highly regulated industry. The only thing I would say is, and maybe there's a miscommunication. I mean, obviously, yes, that we are aiming for a high-end experience at the store. That said, the range of products is going to be a mix, so that would cater to all different types of folks that are within the community. But of course, we're not trying to cater to the Project Renewal community. That just wanted to make that very clear. We're not trying to bring in anybody who might be struggling with substance use issues and make this sort of an attractive nuisance to them. That's obviously not what we're intending to do. And I think by aiming for a higher end experience, that I think we can try to strike that balance. Something that the community can be proud of, but isn't going to be an issue for those that might be struggling with those issues. And the last thing that she mentioned, which is a great point with respect to what we call the legacy market in New York, which has been vibrant and around for a long time. And the state of New York is making Herculean efforts to convert the legacy market into the legal market. As anyone that's walks around New York City sees, there is a proliferation of illicit dispensaries all over the city. And the state is trying to reach out to work with those groups to say, do it the right way, apply for a license, and get into the legal market. So when you talk about, that there are folks that are in the legacy market already in the community, that's an opportunity that we see in partnership with the state and with the community to bring folks like that in to work in the legal market. Like you said, they know the industry better than most because they've been in it for a long time, and it certainly it jives with the mission of Strive, and the whole reason that we were even awarded this license in the first place is working and having a history of providing vocational opportunities to justice-involved individuals. So it is completely aligns on all fours with the mission, and something that we would love to do.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And if I left anything out, please feel free to.
No, you did great. Thank you. One more question. It's interesting that you said you're a lawyer, because the second question was more of a legal question. You mentioned that your licensing is based on the current law, but you're not, but you omitted the fact that there's still a comment period till February 13th, in which we have time to comment about the adult use law. And one of the interesting comments I know many people will ask is that we have more of a stringent approach to having these dispensaries away from areas that have 820 programs, away from areas that have shelter programs. So although you're correct in your licensing right now, however, there is still some time for people to make their voices heard in the commenting area. So it's by you're reading the law as it stands now, but there's still more time to have that law adjusted.
Sure. Just a little nuance to that, right? There's the MRTA, which is the law, right? And that's set. And then there is the rules and regulations which have been promulgated with respect to the adult use program, which you mentioned, which is still in a public comment period, and certainly would encourage everybody on this call, and anybody that's listening, and the OCM has been saying the same thing, please provide comments. The OCM wants it, and I think it's important for the community to provide those comments. The only distinction here is there is a separate set of regulations and guidance related to the conditional adult use retail dispensaries, which is not subject to public comment. And those are the regulations that we are operating under, which are there isn't a public comment period for that.
You're correct. I thank you. Thank you for pointing that out. Were you partnering, this is a condition, and you're partnering with a nonprofit, which excludes you from that comment period. Thank you. I appreciate that. Because I'm trying to read it, but it's like 230 some odd pages, and
it's a lot between the law and then regs and then guidance and FAQs, and there's something new every day. So what I like to say is the foremost expert on New York cannabis law is whoever read the regs last, right? Because we're all in the same position when it comes to getting up to speed on this ever evolving market.
Okay, thank you. I think that was it.
Sure. Happy reading, Arnett. So May is the next hand I see up. Go ahead, May.
Yeah, I couldn't raise this one, and you actually have to switch it later, but I'll explain. So so my question is for the applicant. So just a little background, I'm also the chair of the Community Board's Health and Human Services Committee. So I've come to learn a lot about the homeless shelters, not just the ones in Chinatown, but all over CB3. So we've heard from Project Renewal repeatedly about the harm that the location could do to their clients. It's not like they're going to have access to the products. I mean, they probably won't even walk into the store. I mean, if their clients, I mean, it's just not the kind of place they would walk into. But it is just the presence of it. And this is from an organization who adopts a harm reduction approach. It's, not out of being prohibitionist or something like that. So for the applicant, I'm sure you've been listening, and I just wanted to hear if you had any, additional ideas in addition to what you have said, and sort of dealing with that. Do you think this is, after all, the appropriate location, given all that said? Or is there some other thing that I haven't heard?
No, I mean, it's New York City. I mean, it's like we all live on top of each other, and we're a very public city. People walk everywhere. You can have a building that has incredible views for 15 years, and then someone buys the property next door, and before you know it, 4 years later, your views are gone, and you're listening to construction next to you for 4 years. That's just how we live here. And so, you know, we're on the Bowery, you've got the Bowery Hotel, you've got Gemma right there. I mean, it does not change my views in terms of where we're located. We're in a high luxury apartment building across the street. And, you know, we want to do everything to be a good neighbor. But at the end of the day, I mean, even if we were a block down the street, we are still in the neighborhood, and the neighborhood, particularly the Village where I live as well, it's a walking neighborhood. And so anyone could walk by it, pass it, see it, know what's going on. And, you know, we only want to be good neighbors. We plan on having ample security. And if anything, hopefully we bring a great presence to the neighborhood by having all of the things that we are hoping to do.
Yeah, the only thing I would add is I certainly respect the question. The issue is, no matter where you go, there's always going to be this issue. There's going to be somebody within the vicinity that, because it's cannabis, and cannabis, there is still a lot of historical stigma that's attached to it. And there are different communities and different constituents that are going to be opposed to it no matter where you go. And like Joanne said, it's New York City, and the genie is out of the bottle with respect to legal cannabis in this city. So I think it's part of the evolving landscape of New York. But with respect to the presence issue, because I do want to go back to this because it's an important point. From the outside, it is not, there's going to be a sign, a small sign, which is very limited in terms of what it can say and its size, that'll say only the name of the store. It can't have any cannabis leaf. It can't have any depiction of cannabis. There's no neon flashing signs. You can't see into the dispensary at all. You can't see any cannabis product. So, I mean, if anybody that walks by a dispensary in other areas that have this, like, oftentimes you might not know. You'll probably know initially because there'll be a crowd out there at first with the opening. But as these things normalize, it's going to operate just like any other retail store. And from the exterior, it's not going to have any distinguishing features as a dispensary. And that's built into the law by design because of issues just like this.
Okay, so I just wanted to say something, I'm quite well aware of all the change that is happening in our neighborhood, and there is change all the time. Buildings go up and your views get blocked, and, there's all kinds of, then your apartment building becomes very expensive and all those things, and I'm also aware of the rules about the stores, especially from the Housing Works example. It has to be like, you can't, the way it's set up, and you can't see it from outside and all that. And I'm sure Project Renewal is also aware of those rules. But nevertheless, they have said this. They have said what they have said. Several people from that organization have testified about it. Their CEO down to somebody who lives in the project and lives in the shelter, and as well as some of the staff. So I think it's just something to be really considered. I know that, facilities such as Project Renewal are not it's not like the school and the church. You can't be like within 500 feet of them, but, they may be more at risk than church members. And actually church members, might, want to come to your store. And, if they're of age, it's perfectly, legal for them to do so. So I just think we need to really think about that. Thank you. And we're talking about a very high risk population. It's not, it's not you and me. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you, Meg. Susan, I know you have your hand up. You want to make some final comments?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak on the technical issue actually that Arnett brought up on the community facility and about the rule, still commenting on the rules. So the comments do specifically give municipalities the right for rulemaking on community facilities, which would include drug recovery. And we do actually have 30 days to comment on this particular application. I know some of the stores have been opened like 2 days later. So I don't, there's a lot of strange things happening about the beginning part of this. There's, it's just very unusual that you have, licenses being awarded before the rules are finalized. Only one board has so far sent in their comments, and that did include a community facility distance restriction for these licenses for drug recovery. So we don't know what it's going to end up. My understanding is that we don't know what it's going to end up, which I don't know. I just want to throw that out there, that the municipalities, including New York City, do have the right to make restrictions on community facilities. I don't know if that's helpful or it just makes it more confusing, and actually makes it more confusing for me.
Okay. At this time, I don't know if some members of the public wanted to ask questions, I will allow. I will limit your questions to just 2 minutes, just so we can keep moving. It is about 8 o'clock. I know a lot of people are dedicating a lot of time to this, so we want to make sure we keep everything moving. Tito, this land is ours. I'm sure that's a longer name than I can say, but I'll just go with Tito. Tito, you can speak. I'll give you about 2 minutes. So unmute yourself, please.
Hello?
Yes, go ahead. You can speak in 2 minutes.
So my name is Tito. I'm an addict. I've been clean for over 50 years. I was born and raised on the Lower East Side, and I saw my community destroyed by drugs. I don't know if the people that are put in dispensary had that experience, but I have. And these people at the shelter, these people at Project Renewal are trying to get their lives together. Why in the hell would you put a dispensary next to drug addicts? People, places, and things. It's not just that it's a dispensary here. Everybody knows it's there. And the other thing is there's a whole culture that goes with it. And part of that culture is it's okay to get high. Well, that does not apply to addicts, because addicts can only stay clean if they stay away from things like dispensaries, like certain people, etc. So I don't know why, as much money as you guys have, cannot move your store away from Project Return. Thank you.
Okay, that felt like a comment. Emily Lang, you can go ahead. I'll give you about 2 minutes.
Hi, thanks, Paul. My name is Emily. I'm with Senator Kavanaugh's office. I just had a quick question for the Project Renewal folks. So obviously we've seen a huge proliferation of the illegal cannabis dispensaries. And I mean, I think it's very hard to miss that they're selling cannabis. They have like very big signage and all of that. And we've been working on a lot of those issues. And I don't know if there are any right around the shelters or programs that you guys operate, but I'm wondering if you have noticed any sort of impact on the populations that you serve as a result of the illegal stores. Thanks.
That will be for Project Renewal, I believe.
I think it makes sense to have Damara or Gabriel speak, since they're right there in the neighborhood.
Hi, honestly, I have not seen any changes. I mean, most of our clients, they're gonna, pretty much like continue to smoke. However, we have seen a sharp increase in our overdose incidents, and a lot of times it appears that the marijuana seems to be mixed with fentanyl. So I think that's also another concern for us. So we really haven't seen too much of a difference, but in that aspect, in terms of the overdoses, we've seen a lot of changes. And I think that's, another concern with the dispensaries. They will probably hear you.
Yeah, I think it's a great question. It's encouraging to hear that the proliferation of all these illicit dispensaries hasn't really had an impact on Project Renewal's population. With respect to the fentanyl issue, it's a really dangerous issue, as everybody knows, but it's also one of the benefits of a legal dispensary, where every single product that is being sold in that store is third-party tested by an independent laboratory down to the part per billion. You know exactly what is in that product. It's on the label. So you would never run into that issue, but it certainly is an issue out there with respect to illicit dispensaries that needs to be addressed.
Okay, thank you. Damara, you had your hand up. Go ahead.
Sorry. Actually, Mr. Pearson had a comment for the applicant.
No disrespect to you, but to me, and I've been listening, it just sounds like you're just concerned about financial gain. Not no community, or nobody's life or well-being. I saved 15 lives in like literally. And a lot of times when I save them, they overdosing. It's with weed, the K2 mixed with drugs, literally myself. And we trying to tell you, it's not a good idea for that to be right here. You don't put add flames to the fuel. You do not do that, and that's what you're doing. It's a dispensary right up here by 7th. A legal dispensary. I go there with the armed security guard and all that. It's no training. They don't do no training to see who have an addiction not to serve. They serve the weed. They have people that stand outside from the community that promote to get the customers to come in. So please stop trying to sell it. Stop selling it, because I'm getting upset, very emotional. I'm about to cry. I don't like when I'm here. You're worried about the business. You're not worried about the community and the people in here that I'm with every day that's older than your father, your grandfather, and young to be your child. That family through a rape, that's here overdosing. I smoke weed, but I don't have to smoke weed. So I watch people that can't handle themselves every day, all day, up all night, in the day, going through it. I have to get and help people and get EMS here to get people that's dying. You're not. You're thinking about financial gain, and that's a shame. That's just me. I've been listening. And I hear what you're saying, but I listen beyond the words. And I'm seeing that's not right. It's not right. And that's for me. That's not Ms. D or Mr. Robinson. This is a client here. And I don't have no addiction. So I have people who have addiction. And I know what they doing, what they talking about. And you putting that there is gonna make it harder for them. I understand business-wise, strategically, hotel, famous people, money, yes, it's a good area, but not right across from a shelter. And then you have the neighborhood watching them over here. I know the police guy. I don't know a person, but I met him. He's a retired sergeant brother from the 9th Precinct level. Every day he gotta tell y'all can't be over here. But if you put the dispensary right there, all they're gonna be hanging over there. People gonna go there to roll the weed up and get high right over there. You don't, come on, man. You don't do that. I'm getting upset right now, so my words are really coming out. But move it somewhere else. Move it where it won't be right here. There's many spots in other businesses you can open. I know where you putting that right here. And the main people go from here to 7-Eleven. And from there right here, that's right there. You're not caring about what we telling you, lies. You're caring about financial gain. And that's what I'm listening. I'm not stupid. That's what I'm getting. It don't make no sense. It don't make no sense. Imagine you had your child was in here, a family member going through this, trying to get their life together. And they have to go through it. And it's not easy getting on drugs and breaking the habit. So you don't add and put the stuff here. Don't talk about beer at the corner. You know what I mean? We understand it. Don't bring, oh, it's the beer. You trying to compare. Stop that. I heard that. That don't make sense. That's not heavy drugs. It's a drug. It's not compared to people dying overdose. It's not. It's not. You need to think a different way for your financial gains in another area, not around here. You know, show you do have some care about what they're saying. You're making the job harder on these people here. I'm telling you, I've been here a year.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pearson. Okay, so just to move forward, I don't see any other hands up. I have one final question. This is for both the applicant and project renewal. We've heard a lot of different testimony tonight, and my question is, what's been the level of communication actually between project renewal and the applicant? I think we've had two very differing sides, but what's been the level of communication between Ms. Wilson, Mr. Singer, and the representatives of project renewal? How many times have you all spoke? Like, what's been the levels of communication with the both of you?
I think the first time we heard about this was, I want to say, a few weeks ago. Is that right?
Yeah, when we got the license, and we realized we were in CB3, we talked with Susan, and she recommended there was a variety of organizations we should reach out to immediately, and we emailed you that evening, and then I believe we spoke a couple days afterwards.
That's right.
But perhaps, Paul, to the larger, question, right? And this is because I've seen this play out in communities across the country. I do think there is an opportunity here for a larger discussion about ways to work together to advance mutual interests. Because I do think that while it might seem diametrically opposed, there are actually lots of ways that our organizations can work together for a common cause, because it is something that we are certainly concerned about by law, by regulation. Our staff has to be trained with respect to these issues, and we have a natural partner built in on the block to help us. And so I think we see this as an opportunity, and would hope that there is an opportunity to work collaboratively together.
Thank you. I see two hands. I see Damara. Were you answering my question, or were you giving a different comment? Okay, go ahead, and then I see somebody in the attendees that I will call on. So go ahead, Damara.
I was wondering, as you know, we spent years trying to develop better relationships with the community members and the local precincts. I wanted to know, has there been any conversations or any discussions with the local authorities regarding your potential opening date, or just, when your business does eventually open? Because I can kind of foresee a lot of things happening on the block or in the community. So I just, like I said, I wanted to know, has there been any conversations with the local authorities to kind of prevent the incidents and things that could potentially happen?
Not yet.
Yeah, we're still in the beginning phases. We haven't started construction or anything like that, so there's some time. But certainly that is always part of the process, to engage with local law enforcement and others with respect to the operations, make sure that they're up to speed as we get closer to launch, so we can start game planning for issues like that. But there already has been higher level conversations with elected officials and the like that represent the area. So trying to as we are engaging in this process, put our best foot forward within the community.
All right, thank you. I see Val or Sully. I'm going to allow you to talk. Go right ahead. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you. I just unmuted myself. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, members of the CB3 and also the two organizations who both seem to be very worthwhile organizations. I must say, I have been a resident of this neighborhood since 1968. And I'm also the former director of Cooper Square Mutual Housing Association that owns 21 buildings on that block, and the next block, and then some other locations throughout the neighborhood. And I'm here to oppose the opening of such a store across the street from the shelter, Project Renewal. And I want to give you a little bit of history. Since I've been in the neighborhood so long, I used to be involved with an organization called Toward Community. That was a Quaker action group. And we worked with people on the Bowery. And we used to work with people going to the shelter, or taking them to the shelter, or taking them elsewhere. And the block was a dangerous place, and the shelter was a dangerous place. The homeless people themselves told us it was a dangerous place. I recall one incident where shelter staff was kicking out a guy because he smelled so bad. It turns out he smelled so bad because he had a gangrene on his leg, but nothing was being done to help them. That's how bad it was back in the 70s. In the 80s, we had the crack epidemic, and things got even worse. And there was a movement afoot to close down the facility altogether as a NIMBY type of thing. But eventually, through a community planning process, we were able to bring a reputable organization, Project Renewal, starting in 1991, that changed things dramatically. Services were being provided, people were being helped. The block became safer, okay? Not to say that the block is trouble-free. We've had some problems, particularly if there's an empty bed at the facility, anybody can occupy that, whether or not they're in a Project Renewal program. But altogether, it has been a very good experience. I have nothing against cannabis or cannabis dispensary. I just think it's the wrong location for such a facility that is detrimental to the clients of the shelter and indirectly, because of increased safety issues, to the residents of the block, okay? The people in the shelter are very vulnerable. They're not cured of any addiction. They're being treated, okay? And the slightest temptation can make them revert to their old ways and bring them back to a life of crime and drug addiction. I've been told that by friends of mine here and elsewhere. However recreational the drug may be, it's still a drug. And out of respect for Project Renewal, I urge that this project not be approved at this time, okay? I don't know why you would think that because you sell a product that's high quality, that it will be beyond the ability of a purchaser to take the drug and mix it with other substances that's being done right now with heroin, for example, and sell it to other people, maybe even from the shelter itself for a lower price. And lastly, I'm also a founding member of Cooper Square Community Land Trust, and I'm actually currently working with East Harlem and Bayou Community Land Trust for a similar project that we're doing in East Harlem. And one of the concepts that I try to inculcate in the people that I work with is that a project, no matter how perfect, like the Cooper Square project may qualify, you can't just take it from the Lower East Side, transplant it to the East Harlem and make it work. It has to be accommodated to local conditions. Local residents have to own into the project to make it work. And I believe that that is not something that's been done in this situation. So unless you can find a way to have the community own it and Project Renewal own it, I don't think you're ready for this project to go forward. Thank you.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other hands up. We're going to move forward. So, oh, we do have one hand up. David Crane, go ahead.
Maybe this is what you're about to do, Paul, but I was going to say, I was late. I apologize. And maybe I missed this, but maybe you could remind everyone else, what is it that we're going to be ultimately needing to vote on tonight? I understand that the license is issued, and this has always been a point of confusion to me since the minute I was asked if I wanted to be on this committee. So maybe that's what you're about to do.
You've read my mind, David. But Heidi, feel free to interrupt me at any point. The purpose for this vote tonight would be to either completely outright support the applicant and the license, or I see supporting the license, but in a different location, because that seems to be the main argument here made by Project Renewal. I will shift over to Susan, who can also shed some light. Go ahead.
Yeah,
Susan.
I think in relation to David's question, there's a conditional license. And Paul, when you and I spoke to OCM, and they're actually on the call, so maybe they could correct us if we're wrong. When we spoke to OCM, they said that there was still a final vote, and that they wanted, and they even said at the forum, they wanted to hear whatever it is that we thought that they should know. So they will take these comments, just as last week, I think it was last week, community, or a few weeks ago, Community Board 2 voted on the licenses, and they sent a resolution to OCM.
Right. So they would take these comments into consideration as to whatever this committee decides tonight. And then this will move to the full board at the end of January. And I believe the person who ran the CB2 hearing is Mara Fitzgerald, and she has her hand up, and I'll allow her to talk. She can also provide some guidance. Go ahead, Mara.
Hi, guys. I actually just got off my own cannabis licensing committee, and we voted to approve our third dispensary in our district moments ago. So yes, we actually have three options for our resolutions. The first is to approve, which would be an outright approval based on information provided by the applicant. The second is a deny unless. Those are for people that, for businesses maybe we don't know as well. For instance, Housing Works, has a great presence in this neighborhood for over 35 years. So we felt comfortable, and tons of retail experience. We felt very comfortable giving them a full approval. The other dispensary that day was originally a deny. They changed a lot of their offerings. They cut down their hours dramatically. They chose to operate out of a smaller space. And because of what you were saying, these are going to be approved by the state anyway. The state wants these things rolled out. They want them rolled out fast. We felt like it was a better idea to give them a deny unless and have them sign STIPs, which we've done. The last option was a flat out denial, which originally the second dispensary we saw was, and that is an option. And I think it should remain an option. If a community does not want dispensary as it is presented, if the location is so ill-suited to this type of business, yes, I think a denial would be appropriate. That's all. And if you have any more questions for me, let me know.
Thank you, Mark. All right.
Yeah.
Okay, so Susan, were you saying something just now? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I was going to say, another option is you can comment. Well, first of all, I know that CB2, this is a whole nobody knows exactly what you can do. So we don't know that stipulations will be accepted according to OCM. I don't know if CB2 has had different conversations with them. You could also vote to support a license in a different location. There's, I think, even more options. I don't know how viable they all are, but there's certainly the other options.
Yeah, no, and I'm appreciative of CB2 jumping on our call tonight and offering some friendly advice. My mindset, I have no vote on this one, and at full board I do, unless there's a need for a tie break for tonight. I do think there's just in this particular instance, because I've chosen the route of the task force for this specific application before we think about doing anything else on how we do things as CB3. It's either the outright support or the way this is played out, and the information I've gathered here tonight seems like supporting the license, but in maybe a different location. That's what I'm getting. I will open that up to the task force to debate that. If there's another option there that I don't see, that's what I see. But I see those are the two options. Task force, is there any other opinions outside of my own that you would like to give on that?
Paul, can you just repeat your options again?
Your number one is straight support for the applicant and this license in its current location, which I believe is 3 East 3rd Street, or support for the applicant and this potential licensee, but not in its current location, which would be elsewhere. David Crane, go right ahead.
Is the license tied to both location and applicant, similar to an SLA? Or I guess my point of confusion is, I thought I heard someone say that the license is issued already. And that's when I was like,
Conditional.
it is conditionally issued.
And they said, Paul, if I could just say,
Go ahead.
and please, you and I were on these conversations with OCM, so, what they said was that there would be another meeting with the final vote. Isn't that correct, Paul?
I believe that's what they said.
They said there will be very soon, very, very soon.
If OCM's on the meeting, I believe I thought I saw either Philip or Pascal on.
Pascal's on. Yeah.
If they wanted to answer that.
And in particular, I'm curious, is it, or I need to know, is a license for an applicant at the location, both? Or can it somehow float to a different location from the applicant? I believe it probably must be this applicant, this operator at this location.
We don't know that, but Pascal doesn't seem to be answering.
Pascal, would you, Pascal Bernard from OCM, would it be possible for you to answer that, or?
Yes.
Hi, I'm sorry. Good evening, everyone. Pascal.
Good evening.
I actually literally just joined. I just left Queens 13, so I have no idea what you all have been talking about. So I'm a little hesitant to make any comments. But
David, could you repeat the question for Pascal, just maybe a cleaned up version of it, just to make it
okay. So my question is, the license that's being issued, the first question is a license of this nature, is it for the applicant, the operator at a particular location? Or is it somehow a license to an operator and then the location can be selected or removed separately?
And so this is a nonprofit. They received the provisional license, and the nonprofit had to come with the location.
Okay, so then the other question is, we are unclear, I guess, what provisional license means. Is there a subsequent vote as to whether it actually is going to be able to operate? What does provisional mean?
And so we issued the license on November 21st of 2022. And they had to find a location, go through this process, and then come back to the Cannabis Control Board. And then the board would make a final determination. The community board can send its advisory opinion to the Cannabis Control Board. The board will consider that along with other factors.
So, hypothetical, what if Community Board 3 said, well, we would approve of this operator, this applicant, if it were at a different location? Would that fit with your provisional license and this process that you've just described?
So thank you for the hypothetical. Unlike SLA, we don't have precedents for me to be able to point to and say, what we will and won't do. So it's hard for me to say that. We are the first retail dispensary to operate open less than a month ago on the 29th. So it's hard for me to answer that question. I'm sorry. And, you know, just to be fully transparent, I know the answer I'm giving you is not what you want to hear, but it is the reality of the situation.
That's a fair answer. Appreciate it.
David, I do think we're kind of setting the precedent in whatever we write out tonight. What we choose to support, not support, say. I think it's going to help, I guess, OCM and other potential applicants going forward. So this is uncharted territory for us, which is why I'm making this as very narrow as possible. I'll take any other opinions from the task force on this specific, on what I've said. All right. Okay, since I don't hear much, I'm going to just kind of take a straw poll before we pull up the resolution. There is a draft resolution we have ready. What are your thoughts? Where are you leaning towards as a member of this task force, of what you would like to see happen here? And then that's where we'll go, and I'll go around based on who's on my list. Oh, well, everything's alphabetized, so that works. So Andrea, you got it. You're the lead off it.
Right, so there's two options, right? Just outright support and, sorry, I had to step away for one moment.
That's fine.
Outright support and then,
Supporting it at a different location.
okay. Based on everything we've heard, I would probably go with support on a different location.
Okay. That's one. Arnett.
The same thing, support at a different location.
Okay.
Since it's up in the air about how effective a full out denial would be. Because I was thinking if we did a full denial and then have them come back and, you know, denial based on the location, then have them come back with a different location. Since that's not an option, then it would be approved with a different location, because that's ultimately, I think, the sticking point.
Okay. Would you, I'll come back. I'll come back to that in a second. Next person I see is David. Great.
Well, ideally, I do not believe that these should be located within several hundred feet of one of these programs. Realistically, I also don't believe that it would be that much of a trigger. Marijuana is everywhere. I think gray market marijuana is really the problem, much more so than this dispensary would be. But I do want the regulations to restrict it. And so I think that, because I think we've got two parts we're going to do tonight. Others will be our comments.
Not doing the comments tonight.
We're not doing that. Well, I want the comments to say that. So I want to be
eventually.
I would say that I would go for approve if it were at a different location more than 200 feet. That's what they do for churches or school, 500, whichever it is, 200 or 500 feet away from one of these programs, which I'm pretty sure either. Anyway, in a nutshell, that's what I would want. So what I would support.
All right. So that's 3. Heidi.
Same for me. Support it in a different location. And I think my points have already been mentioned.
All right.
On top of working, sorry, Paul.
That's
on top
all
of
right.
working more closely with, and maybe that's a comment for OCM, but working with a local nonprofit, so that these considerations are understood and known before the application is even submitted and approved.
All right. Thank you. Who am I missing? I'm missing May and Troy. May.
Yeah, so for this thing, what we're doing tonight, I also, you know, concerned about the location. So it's the different location that would make a difference.
Okay. Thank you, May. Troy, go ahead.
I'm a little different. I would support it outright. Where we're at downtown, I don't believe anywhere you put a dispensary is going to be, you know, the perfect place to put it, because we're going to have a school 5 blocks away from another location, or 2 blocks away from a church. So right now, with no stipulations in it and anything like that, I would just support it outright.
That's fair. Thank you, Troy. So that's 5-1. I appreciate that, Troy, though. That's all right. I'm not gonna, so just because I'm chairing the meeting itself, May, is there a motion to bring up the resolution? Somebody make a motion for us. Anyone in the task force members?
I make a motion.
Somebody second that, please.
I second it.
Oh, wait, can I ask? The resolution isn't finished. The resolution just gives the,
I'm just, the motion is to bring it up, to pull it up so we can see it.
oh, I don't know that we need a motion to do that.
Okay. Where's May? May, you have screen sharing ability, so go right ahead.
Yes,
you can pull it up, please.
Yeah. It's not at the top. Oh, sorry. Okay, it's 2 pages, but that's the top. Should I read it?
I would love to just give the gist of it, but a lot of it at the beginning is what the law was put in, correct, Susan, if I'm correct?
Yeah, it just states parts of the law referring to the social justice issues. It just says what they are, why the law was put in.
All right, keep scrolling down.
So this is all quotes from the law. You could keep going. And then this is where it starts being individual.
Okay, this is where you can, May, you can start reading this if you'd like, please, this portion.
Okay. So whereas on November 21, the New York City Cannabis Control Board granted a provisional conditional adult use retail dispensary license to Gotham Cord LLC. And whereas Gotham Cord is a nonprofit partnership of Second Chance New York, Inc., that's for their 51%, a nonprofit created to support the mission of Strive, which is a workforce development nonprofit based in East Harlem. And next is SW 2022 Trust, a trust owned by Joanne and Fred Wilson, they have 48%, and Jason Gibson, who has 1%. He's a justice involved individual who is the chairman of the board of directors of SCNY, the sole manager of Gotham Court LLC, and is also a member of Strive's advisory committee. The court will be operated by a management company engaged by the nonprofit Strive. And Joanne Wilson is the CEO of the management company and will be responsible for running the business. Additionally, Joanne Wilson owns the retail space proposed for the location at 3 East 3rd Street, which has a basement, a first floor, a mezzanine, and I'm not sure what happened there. And whereas Gotham proposes to operate from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. daily, will use velvet ropes for line control at the exterior of the building as needed, and will have closed windows and facade. And whereas Project Renewal has expressed opposition to the location of the dispensary directly across from Project Renewal's facilities. The proposed dispensary at 3 East 3rd Street is directly across the street from Project Renewal's 3rd Street Men's Shelter at 8 East 3rd Street. This facility houses 175 men who are homeless, along with an additional 60-bed in-house Oasis recovery program. Kenton Hall at 333 Bowery is a behavioral health facility that houses 108 men. These men receive some services and meals at 8 East 3rd Street. In addition, there is a 120 client outpatient recovery program. Approximately 10% of these clients are from 8 East 3rd Street, or are from 8 East 3rd Street residents, and about 10% from Kenton Hall residents. Some of the Project Renewal residents are additionally in other off-site outpatient recovery programs. In general, these programs serve chronically homeless clients, many of whom also experience mental illness and or have significant histories with incarceration and trauma. And that's the end of it.
And yeah, so now it's just ready for your bullet points.
All right, so it would be the resolved clause. At the end is, so far, any questions about the main points of these, of the whereas, specifically in regard to Gotham and Project Renewal from the task force?
If I can just mention, I had that information confirmed by both the applicant and Project Renewals as refers to their, as it refers to them.
Okay, thank you. Troy, go ahead.
Yeah, Paul, I'm not quite understanding the partnerships right now. I thought when Jason spoke earlier, he was just the chairman or the co-chair of Strive. But now it looks like he's a 1% owner in the total business. Am I correct?
No, that's what it says here.
Jason's not on the call.
Okay.
Did I get the
I think
name?
you're confusing him with Roy.
Okay, yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
So who's Jason?
He's not on the call. He's
a 1% partner that's not here.
All right, thank you.
Wish I had a better answer, Troy. Sorry. Is there any questions about this? Because I would like to move to the resolve clause as soon as possible. If you have no issues, committee, with what's already written.
Paul?
Yeah.
I think we need bullet points on why the committee is voting as they do before they get to the resolve.
Yeah. No.
Okay.
So go ahead, David. Maybe you can help me guide.
Yeah, well,
it
was similar to Susan. I was going to say, first, we are drafting one which is of the nature of approve if we're at a different location.
Yeah.
Okay, so we could craft the language for the resolved, because this is new territory, right? So like, what words do we want to use so that it's understandable and effective? But also a whereas clause that says whereas, and I think we should talk about the potential, the plausible impact on the residents of any program of that nature. And I don't know, either Susan or Annette would know the technical thing we ought to say about a program with I don't know, a certain type of a license or some technical name, something that can be identified. And we also need to think about the distance. I've been playing around with the SLA map here. The current location is 150 feet from the entrance to the shelter. 200 feet isn't that much more. So maybe it's a 500-foot diameter distance that we want to be considered to say instead of 200.
I don't think you need to give a distance. You can give the distance in the comments that we send.
We need to put it in this license. We need to say that we would approve of a license that we're more than 500 feet away. Those are the kind of things that I think we need to put in. And we need a whereas that explains our rationale. And the rationale, that needs to be pretty compellingly written that says, you know,
Can I suggest not on this block?
yeah, well, there's other blocks we wouldn't want it on either. I think we all want to say 500 feet from a program of a certain nature.
Okay, well, that's what Community Board 5 did.
They may have excellent language for that. David, you know you're the king of language on this stuff, so I'm going to defer to you on how we generate this. Well, let's do the therefore first, because I mean,
Yes, that's
that's
fine.
what we need to ultimately really agree on. So
Right.
let's get that drafted so that we're comfortable with that. Paul, and do you want to lead that? I mean, so
You can
that-
lead it. I'm going to pass it
Right.
on. Go ahead.
Therefore be it resolved. And by the way, I'm terrible with language. It's just that I've been working, with the board for 20 years trying to write.
Too
print
modest.
Would work. Therefore be it resolved that, comma, not that, we don't need that. No, that Community Board 3 Manhattan. Now, what language do we think will work with this target audience who is, OCM, or does OCM
Yes.
issue the license? It's not the board name. Okay. Well, let's play with it. We would approve of this license if it were at a different location, more than 500 feet from Project Renewal and the East 3rd Street shelters. From the two Project Renewal shelters, and 500 feet from any.
I think we should say, yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I think we should say 500 feet from like a substance abuse treatment center.
From a substance
Something
abuse
like that.
treatment center, including the two Project Renewal shelters at, and then give those two addresses.
Okay.
8 3rd
You want
Street.
me to read what Community Board 5 wrote?
Please.
Okay, whereas sections 119.1 and 119.4 of cannabis regulations allows local governments to restrict cannabis establishments to not less than 1,000 feet from one another, 500 feet from a school, 500 feet from a community facility, which is what this is, and 200 feet from a house of worship. Whereas CB3 believes there should be additional category allowing local governments to restrict cannabis establishments within 500 feet of a harm reduction facility. And whereas section 119.2 of cannabis regulations allows local governments some ability to regulate time, place, and manner of an operation of adult use cannabis retail and or consumption sites. Then they go into hours. So I guess it's the section about within 500 feet of a harm reduction facility is what they would have that's relevant.
Oh, wait. Well, I'm sorry. There's a distinction between harm reduction and residential treatment and outpatient.
Right.
So
Right. I think that the right term, I've been consulting with my husband who has some expertise. How about, what does this sound like? Substance use disorder, treatment, or recovery facility. There may be other things. Arnett? Does that cover like
Yeah.
Okay.
I agree. Yeah, I agree.
I'm sorry, what you say?
I don't think that's a meaningful word in this context. It's not certainly specific.
Which one is not specific?
Oh, it's just a very general term and it could mean needle exchange. I don't know.
No, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Well, that's what harm reduction, that can also mean the same. That's what I was saying. Residential, outpatient, harm reduction, they're all part of substance use treatment, but they're different sort of treatments. So I was going actually with the more broader sense so that it can encompass a larger scope of treatment facilities that may have an adverse, this location may have an adverse effect on them. Just to have, and they allow our community boards to differentiate which location would have the most harm if it was there, like if it's a harm reduction and they're fine with it, then allow them, to have that option versus specifically naming which one.
Yeah, I don't know. I find harm reduction to be a very broad. It would include syringe exchange programs. And there are syringe exchanges in very many places.
Yeah, like all our parks.
And I don't know that they would be adversely affected. I mean, I really think it is substance use treatment.
That's true, because they are using, yeah.
I just want to interject really quick. I'm sorry, David. I just want to be very, very careful of how broad we go on this one, just because of how limited this specific application is. So as far as you want to take it, I get it, but that may be more along the lines of what we may want to do on our comments stuff that we send up to OCM during the comment period. But for this, I think it has to be a little bit more limiting.
Okay, so an 820 or 820 and 822 program, which would be residential and outpatient substance use treatment centers. Those are the two programs that Oasis has pretty much in New York City.
Another possibility, Paul, is to stick in a program which objects to the license, but that becomes they'd have to have ability to run that process.
I don't think that's.
Yeah, I don't think it'd be helpful.
That's the way any of the laws are written.
I understand, and it just makes it more complicated. Right, now as to the 500 feet.
It would also get into money.
Right. I just played with some quarters on a map the other night, and I estimate that they say that these facilities, the recreational dispensaries have to be 1,000 feet apart. About 50 of those would fit within the district, except for that there's the 500, the various 500 and 200 foot rule barriers. Basically, anywhere that you see a bar, they can exist at a distance of about 4 or 5 blocks. That's what's going to be happening, and it's going to fill in that densely over time in the district. And this will be adding another exclusion in there. This is neither here nor there. I'm sorry. We need to focus on the language, or we'll be here all night. I would add the 2 addresses to the 2 project renewal shelters right there, and they are 8 at East 3rd Street and
333 Bowery.
And 333 Bowery.
East 3rd and 333 Bowery.
Right. Yeah. Okay. All right. I think that's a fine. Therefore, be it resolved. I would. It's still a draft. We could go back and work on a whereas where we talk about the impacts on substance use disorder treatment and recovery facilities.
And David, could I suggest just one thing?
Change the word. It's substance use disorder treatment or recovery facility. So change the word center to be or recovery facility.
Could we add community facility since that's the category?
Okay. And what does that category include? A community facility?
Well, medical offices and that kind of, any medical program is community facility.
So the community facility is, I'm sorry, like that?
It says it's a zoning, it's used as a zoning term.
So it's the kind of things that Charis has to be. So that's medical facility, dormitory.
Charis is, yes, Charis is as a.
I wouldn't do this. This makes it, I don't see that there could be impacts again on its face for that, things of that nature.
No, the reason I'm saying community, it's the recovered facility, community facility, not and community facility.
Oh, okay.
It's just saying
recover. Well, but treatment or for a recovery facility is something that the State Department of Health understands as language. Oasis.
I'm saying to leave that, or just say which is a community facility.
Okay. Well, I'm saying that the language that I've suggested, getting word of the or a community out of that, is the language that Oasis understands.
But David, the law says that the municipalities can do rulemaking for community facilities, and this fits into that category.
I don't like the way it's written, Susan. It would say more than 500 feet from any community facility of any nature that is a
No.
zoned. Yeah, I would.
Okay, that's not what
I
I
wouldn't
meant.
support it. Well, I don't support it, and I'm on
We
the.
can talk about refining language later, because I don't think my intention is I'm clearly expressing it.
Well, we need clear language here. So therefore, for a very important resolution. So I would prefer that we cut the language or community facility.
I wasn't saying or community facility. I was saying this recovery facility, which is a community facility.
Or, so which one that is a?
There's no or. There's no or.
Okay, where would you put the clause, this which is a?
After facility.
Okay, or
recovery,
any substance use disorder treatment or recovery facility, which is a community facility.
Correct.
I would do it the other way around. Community facility, which is a.
Okay, well, that was maybe the language, a community facility, which is a substance use disorder treatment or facility or a recovery facility. Okay, is this going to exclude anything then, Sue? Oh, you're saying to put it there because they have the.
Fits into that category. Fits into the category that the law allows.
This law allows. Okay. That makes sense. So can we and now you can paste the words community facility.
Yes, I'm sorry, it's not clear.
From I'm sorry too. From
And
a
someone
community facility, which is, you can add right there, a community facility, which is.
Wait, okay, can you start from the beginning? If we approve of this license, if it were at a location, not more than 500 feet
Oh,
from.
more than. If it were at a location more than, cut the word not.
Oh, more than, right, yes, sorry. Because we would approve it if it were more than 500 feet from a.
Community facility, yeah.
Which is?
Correct.
Which is a.
Yep.
Okay, and then they'll do that, and we're including the two project renewal shelters at 8 East 3rd Street and at 333 Bowery. All right. Get out of here. Okay, I'll fix that later. But is that what you want? Or is that what people are looking at doing?
That is what I would like us to say, yeah. Yeah, and I got a thumbs up for my Oasis expert. All right, now whereas above here. And here we ought to talk about the rationale. All righty, so whereas, and the rationale is that this type of program. I wish I could replay some of the testimony we had earlier.
Do you want to say that the program directors at Project Renewal?
There you go. That we should say that. Whereas the program directors.
Or these, what is it, substance disorder, directors of substance disorder programs.
Directors of this, substance abuse program directors. Substance abuse
disorder,
right?
Substance disorder.
Substance use disorder.
Yes. Programs.
Is it a treatment program or just like that?
Programs, it's more than one disorder program.
Programs, directors. Oh, oh, more than one program. Okay.
Program.
Whereas the directors of the
Yeah, and treatment programs, I'm pretty certain. I don't know if the treatment and recovery, oh my goodness.
no,
That project renewal. Testified, provided testimony at. Yeah, at whichever month we're in, January, at the January 23 meeting of the task force, whatever we're called. Yeah, that. Okay, well, no.
I don't know.
But the recreational, that having a recreational marijuana dispensary, no, cannabis dispensary. I'm never going to get used to that. We're not supposed to say marijuana anymore. A recreational cannabis dispensary, that's the technical word for these things. I believe it
And
is.
with adult use recreational.
Adult use recreational cannabis dispensary. Let's make it even more longer. If we can juxtapose the words provisional and conditional, even better. Okay, having that across the street. You know, from their program, from their treatment and recovery programs, just be a little shorter here. Would be detrimental to, well, in my mind, they said it would be detrimental to the recovery or the well-being of their residents, and they're not all residents.
Clients, program
And
clients.
potentially, yeah, this would potentially detrimental in there.
Are their clients?
Residents and clients, correct.
Okay.
Yep, and I think we better say potentially detrimental.
Would be.
You know, and I said that when I use the word compelling, I think I said that it was yeah, the persuasive, that, it is a persuasive, I don't even do we need to cage it at all? I mean, I found it persuasive and plausible that the effect exists. I mean, I know that these things exist. Okay. Anyway, it's going to be a trigger.
It's just like, are you?
I don't know. I can't come up with the words here. I'm playing around with different words. In fact, I'm just going to. If there's someone else who wants to help us, let's write about committee. This is not marijuana. It's asthma.
Yeah.
Are you sure?
Positive. It's been quite a while since I actually smoked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Any of the committee members want to add to that? Whereas might be effective outside of what David's done. Thank you, David, so far.
Well, it's a long sentence. We could put a period there after clients and then come up with a new sentence.
Okay.
Someone else was about to say, was that Susan?
I was gonna ask if you wanted to say that, a client and I don't, people who are in recovery also testified as to their belief of, I'm going to say, the triggering impacts from having this site across the street.
Right. I do think we need a sentence that, I don't know, at a factual level that explains the mechanism here. Heidi may be helpful with this, or we could ask one of the project renewal staff for it. But if in a sentence or two, in the language that Oasis would understand, if we could describe this.
What are you asking for specifically, David? Can you just
Well, we're saying we've introduced the word triggering impact. We haven't really said what it is that would be bad. How is this detrimental? How would this be detrimental to the recovery of their clients? Like I said, I wish I could wind back, but they're here on the call, are they not? Maybe they're conferring by text.
Damara's on.
We're here.
I got cut off for a second, but I'm here. There was somebody who mentioned, I think it was a resident of the neighborhood person having to avoid as an addict in recovery, having to avoid person, place, and thing, maybe something along those
Right, that's the AA.
lines.
Well, Project Renewal, now is your opportunity to speak up, to help us to draft this whereas about why it would be bad for your program.
Yes, hi, Damara is still here. Sorry about that. You would like for me to state the facts as to, to state reasons why it would be bad?
Hi, it's Doreen Howe. I think what they're asking for, and Gabriel, as the director of the actual treatment program, if you want to provide language, I think what we're trying to say here is that I'm looking at where you are in the writing of this, our clients' fragile recovery would be jeopardized, and they may return to substance use.
Yeah.
There's a facility across this, Gabriel, thank you.
Yeah, sure. I would say that it's potentially triggering to clients that are very vulnerable and are high risk for return to use of substance use. Return to use is the language they use now. We don't use the language relapse anymore, so that's why there's kind of a redundancy there.
So could you repeat, it's potentially triggering to clients?
Reuse.
Returning to use.
Oh.
Sorry, yeah, returning to use.
Returning to use.
Like that? Oh.
To high risk and vulnerable clients returning to use.
Thank you, Gabriel.
Can we let's split out maybe the sentence in front to a separate whereas, because this sentence really belongs directly after or
Over here, you mean?
Yeah, that sentence there, split it out, or at least
You mean starting with the client?
Right. And then the sentence that we added from Gabriel should go at the end of the previous whereas. And then let's have Gabriel look at it again and see if there's, so you can just scroll up just a little bit. Is there anything different that you would recommend in that paragraph, Gabriel? Remember, this is the main rationale why none of these facilities, none of these dispensaries should be located within 500 feet of your door. In the context of, as an argument to an agency who doesn't yet have that in their guidance for licensing. Okay.
Can I mention something else that's really important?
Please.
So I think we should make Mar honorary member of CB3. She just sent me a copy of what OCM or the board sends out with their provisional approval. And it says on it, though this letter shall not be considered final location approval, applicants are authorized to begin the notification process.
And is that notification process where they, or how we first heard about this?
Yep.
I see.
So, so they are saying it's not final location approval. We may want to put somewhere in there that the provisional approval just states that it is not considered final location approval.
Okay. Good. We get to use the words provisional conditional because I just love that phrase. It's my new favorite thing in the world.
So this is, let me see what they say. The board, the New York State Cannabis Control Board has provisionally approved your application for a conditional adult use retail.
All right. So put it in what sense? Whereas it's,
well, I think if
Well,
we
it doesn't.
and therefore it can be changed. Is that the purpose for stating it?
Yeah, that, you know, that we're saying that we would prefer a different location. And this seems to be in line with what their conditional approval states, that
Yep.
that the proposed location was not final.
All right. Whereas the notification about the provisional conditional blah blah states that the location is not that is not final approval for the location.
That it shall not be considered final location approval.
Well, can you just repeat? Whereas
Yeah,
go ahead.
Whereas wait a second. The provisional approval for the application of CAURD license was approved. It specifically stated that it shall not be considered final location approval.
Specifically stated that I guess, well, is this a quote like this?
Yes, I'm reading from it.
Shall not
be considered final location approval.
Final location
approval.
Whereas, I guess, is that when?
Just sort of FYI, I'm going to read you what else it says. Please note the office reserves right upon further review to deny a specific location subject to, that's probably about the 200 and 500. I take that back.
Okay, so this is a little clunky. When approval was approved, it can stay there. It's by
was granted. Is it granted the right word?
What is the word, Susan? Sorry, you've got a.
Well, what they say is approved. The board has provisionally approved your application.
When the board provisionally approved the application.
Application for a card license.
The board?
Yeah, the Cannabis Control Board, New York State Cannabis Control Board.
State Cannabis Control Board provisionally
approved.
Provisionally approved
the application for a card license.
application.
Okay, it's the first time that we've written that acronym. Let's put in the word conditional.
What?
Conditional.
Oh,
adult
I'll
use.
spell it out. I'll spell out the whole thing, right?
Because I really want provisional conditional. It's just so, it's poetry. I'm sorry, I'm being.
Well,
know
what
I'm gonna
was
get
the-
for your
I'm getting a little stir crazy. And so I'm being a little flippant.
okay,
And
well,
I'm
the
making
card.
fun of legalese, absolutely.
Okay,
So
well, the
we could put,
You-
so,
We will fix that.
Put
We
the
will
words.
fix
yeah, well,
You
we'll
do need to
spell it
put the
out the
words,
first
okay.
time, and then after that, it doesn't get.
so say when I receive the application for the card license, the letter, I would say the letter stated that it shall not be considered final location approval.
The letter to CB3 or the letter?
No, to the letter of the conditional provisional.
Okay,
What was that? Wait, where is? Wait, okay, I don't know. There's something here. The. Oh, shit.
you just deleted, put that back, undo.
Okay. What do you want to say? I'm sorry. Whereas when approved was approved. Well, let me stick it here for you.
Yeah, where it says was approved, say the letter, that's it, and then take out it.
Sent.
The letter,
Oh, received by us?
the
Oh,
letter,
okay.
the letter of conditional provisional approval. The letter specifically stated that it shall not be considered final location approval.
I think just the letter specifically stated.
It says that, though this letter shall not be considered final location approval, applicants are authorized to begin the notification process.
All right, and then just a comma, and it makes sense. I don't know that there's anything else that needs to be here to make this either understandable or stronger.
I think it's the strongest it's going to get.
Oh, yeah, I think so.
Do you want to
So-
put where it says that sentence about letter specifically stated? Do you want to add Community Board 3 therefore objects to the location, but not the license?
You mean down in the therefore?
Right after the,
Within the
do
where.
a therefore right after that final location approval. Therefore be it resolved.
That community
Or
board
maybe
does,
you could
okay,
just-
just state that we do disapprove of this location. And then a further resolve that we would approve it at a different one.
Okay.
Like that? Yeah, that sounds good. But go ahead and please put a comma before in lowercase the word the. So that it's one sentence. I mean, that could be fixed later, but typically.
Yeah, okay, I'll do it.
Whatever comes out of
Okay,
committee
okay.
can make its way to the floor. Okay, and then so the current resolve clause would be a further resolved.
Be it
With the word
further, before, over here, you mean?
Yeah, we'll put in a new therefore be it resolved.
Sorry. Wait, hold on.
Don't worry about the font, May. We'll fix that.
Oh, no, I can't even see it, so I have to something therefore be it resolved, yeah.
Community Board 3 Manhattan
Oh, but,
does
you mean
not
that? Oh, okay.
does not approve of the 3 East 3rd Street location for this card license, for the card license for, whoever the name of the applicant is. Yeah, which we maybe want to, I don't know if we have that. I was actually looking at the,
Was it Gotham LLC? Is that what? Is that what they're calling it? Isn't it?
file for Gotham Card LLC, I guess, yeah, that's there you go. And that's right after the whereas, where we're basically establishing that this is within, certainly is possible. It is exactly the kind of comment that they invited. I think that's pretty strong. So then at the end, and therefore be it further resolved, or leave out therefore.
Or be it further?
Yeah, be it further resolved. I mean, these are not magic.
Okay, to a
These
small
are
thing,
just
right, yeah.
structural thing. It's just a form
Mhm.
resolved. Yeah. And then
Oh, what, oh,
are you using the style where you just stick a trailing and on there at the end of every paragraph? If I don't think you are, okay. Word location more than 500 feet from the community facility, which is a substance use disorder treatment or recovery facility, including the 2 project renewal shelters at 80 3rd Street and 33 Bowery. Is that the right way to phrase it? They're both operated by project renewal, correct? But one I think is called that, one's called something else.
No, they're both project renewal. The one on Bowery is called Kenton Hall.
Oh.
However, I wouldn't say just shelters. I would say shelters with the disorder programs.
Yeah. With and
But they're both project renewals are provider for both.
adding again, substance use disorder treatment or recovery facility.
Yes, because it's
Facility.
not just that
Facilities, project renewal facilities. Can we just state that? Yeah.
I would put in the recovery because it's not every shelter.
Well, right. I'm asking the word facilities instead of shelters.
Oh,
I think that'll do it. We're just
Yeah.
following that big long.
yeah, got it. Yes.
like that?
Yeah.
That's it. That'll do it.
All right, Paul, I think we're done. If you want to have someone read it and task force members, it's so easy to drift away when this crafting starts to begin. Can we pay attention and read the new whereases? Let's not read the whole thing.
Okay, where do you want to start?
Yeah, focusing right there on starting right there with, is there a better narrative way to state this? And also, okay, let me think for a second. These kinds of things, you're playing with someone's worldview and which is their heartstrings and the intellectual, parts of that. So you got to be stating facts. You can also be stating, you can be using emotional language or emotive language, like the words vulnerable. Some people are going to be more influenced by emotive language and some are going to be more influenced by presentation of the facts. So we need a mix. And the narratively, are we saying things in the right order? So those are the things to be thinking about as it's read.
Did you want me to read this out loud to people?
Go ahead.
Okay, so this is the new, some new whereas we have added. Whereas the directors of the substance use disorder treatment programs at Project Renewal provided testimony at the January 2023 meeting of the Cannabis Control Task Force that having an adult use recreational cannabis dispensary across the street from their treatment and recovery programs would be potentially detrimental to the recovery of their residents and clients. It is potentially triggering to high risk and vulnerable clients returning to use. Whereas a client and people who are in recovery also testified regarding their beliefs that the triggering impacts, regarding their beliefs about the triggering impacts from having the site across the street. Whereas when the New York State Cannabis Control Board provisionally approved the application for the card license, the letter specifically stated that it shall not be considered final location approval. Therefore, be it resolved Community Board 3, Manhattan does not approve of the 3 East 3rd Street location for this card license for Gotham Court LLC. Be it further resolved, Community Board 3 Manhattan would approve of this license if it were at a location more than 500 feet from a community facility, which is a substance use disorder treatment or recovery facility, and that's including the 2 project renewal facilities at 8 East 3rd Street and at 333 Barry.
All right, thank you, May.
So I
Yeah,
have
David.
two thoughts. In the first of the whereases, the intro words should have had the whole phrase about treatment and recovery program. So we can go back to that. It's just adding a couple words. I know the phrase gets used quite often.
You mean over here?
Yeah. Substance use disorder treatment and recovery programs there. And then in the last, the actual last, be it resolved, the further, can we use the formulation about deny unless, because we use it elsewhere. I know we're not having stipulations on this thing, but it's a useful way to phrase it. No? That we ask OCM to deny this license unless the location is moved to more than, something like that.
I think
That's
the way you have it, that we would approve it in another location is very, very clear. We don't have denial authority, so we're really
We
can't.
don't, correct, but we ask them to deny, but we shorthand it, even though we don't have denial authority for the SLA all the time. But we
The
could ask,
SLA specifically asked us to do that for a reason.
I understand.
Okay, so
But as it's written, it sounds like we maybe want them to come back to us, which I don't think we do.
I don't want to touch that portion just yet. I do want to keep this as is, though. That's my opinion.
Okay.
If anybody else wants to say something different, if you want to change that language, please let me know now. Otherwise, I think this should just stay the way it is. It is 9:30.
I do feel that this invites them to come back to us.
Okay, that's fine.
Okay.
Does the task force have any objections to what has been written tonight? Okay. All right, so what we'll do here, May, I'm gonna ask you to take a roll call vote on this specific resolution before we move, before we go to adjournment. So
Okay.
this is a roll
All
call
right.
vote, and then we'll do this is what we'll do. We'll this will be the attendance and the vote for on this resolution for tonight.
Okay. Okay. Heidi Schmidt. I'll come back to her.
So
She's on.
I'm here and I'm voting for the resolution as written.
Okay. David Crane.
Yes.
Andrea Gordillo.
Yes.
May Lee, yes. Arnett Scott.
Yes.
Troy Velez.
Yes.
Okay. All yeses.
Right. So I just want to say thank you to this task force that was put together. I know this is kind of icky. I know I want to thank Heidi, who's been behind the scenes helping out a lot as the chair. I know it was going to be actually difficult for her to navigate the meeting tonight. Happy to do it for her. This was going to be singular in how we did this. This is a task force. If a committee is to be created, that would be much further down the line. But this is it for tonight. Thank you everyone for coming on. Thank you to Project Renewal and thank you to the applicant for coming on tonight. We are officially adjourned. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.